mentioned in the beginning. The culture element that companies look at, how do you really meet the cultural requirement. Now a lot of companies look at diversity, and diversity here also means divergence views. How do you respect people's views even if they are on the other side of the spectrum, and how do you build confidence in people? When you disagree, do you show some patience? Do you bring some reasoning skills? Do you give some examples? Do you appreciate before you give? Remember, I talked about this example that you can appreciate the point being made, saying, okay, I understand what you're saying. And maybe it's partly true, but let me give you another perspective. And maybe that helps you understand that this point is slightly different. And let me explain this to you by an example. So you're very softly saying, you are relating to the person's point but still trying to make your point. Okay, so it's important that when you disagree, when you try and bring a very different point by trying to interject somebody else's point, you do with respect. Respect of individual is anyway very important. A lot of companies, this is a value. Okay, respecting individual is a value. And some people just get eliminated in group discussion because they've not been respectful to people. Okay, so please be very clear, and I'm sure you can get to know before, let's say you go for Asian Paints group discussion. You can always go on the website and find out what are the key values of Asian Paints, so that you have that at the back of your mind, that look, at least I'll make sure that these elements are well managed when I'm part of this. I'm not saying that you can become disrespectful in other discussions, but make sure that if company has a stated cultural nuances, you are aligned to that. You respect that. That's really important. Leadership, we talked about. How do you demonstrate your leadership? Driving ideas, helping in discussions. Sometimes you can also resolve conflict. Two people are really debating in a big way. You can very quietly interject, silently interject, and try and say, hey guys, I understand, both of you have two different point of views. I think Suresh can actually, was trying to say something. Let's allow him an opportunity. Maybe he makes another point which helps us understand this better. And therefore, you try and break the ice between these two people, and you move on to Suresh, for example. Okay, so, and obviously, you shouldn't be taking sides with people. You shouldn't be patronizing somebody else. A neutral behavior is what is expected. It's always better to demonstrate a neutral behavior. Sometimes, and this is a trap that I always warn student. Maybe your very close friend is sitting in the group discussion, knowingly, unknowingly, you start supporting, and you look like a patronizer. Even he or she is not giving good ideas, you start supporting. Keep the friendship away. All the students of your batch are friends, your colleagues at that point of time. Don't patronize just because your close friend is sitting there. That can actually derail your own opportunity. So make sure that you show a neutral behavior, okay, and not something that you are partitioning with somebody else. Okay, maybe I'll give it a pause here and see if there are any questions. Are there any points that you want to understand a bit more, or is that clear?
So, hi, sir. I have a question here.
Yeah, Sudarshana, go ahead.
Like, usually in GD, when we don't get a chance, we actually tone up a bit to get a chance. Is that practice a good one?
So I would say, don't increase your voice. You can actually interject. So the way I suggest to interject is, let's say, as I mentioned in an earlier example, let's say 8 people are participating, 7 have spoken, you have not managed to speak till now. And let's say Akshay is speaking. You carefully listen to what Akshay is speaking. And logically, at a point when you say he is going to take a deep breath, because already spoken for 60 seconds, that's the real time, because he'll give you 3 seconds to get in. Just get in there. So Akshay takes a deep breath to start a new statement, and you say, thank you, Akshay, you really made a beautiful point. and I really like this, what you said, and you appreciate her for 30 seconds and then say, I want to make a couple of points, guys, in this discussion. And you beautifully enter. Okay. So you have to be very careful when you enter, because imagine if Akshay was at a peak of speaking and you try entering, you will be identified as a desperate person. You have disturbed the pace of somebody else speaking, right? So try and find out the right opportunity to enter. Okay. And that's where somebody else can also help you. Maybe Akshay helps you. She realizes that Sudarshana has not spoken. She says, okay, I've made my point, guys. I just realized that Sudarshana has not spoken. Hey, guys, let's give her a couple of minutes to speak. Sudarshana, do you want to speak? And here you go. So I think all of you have that opportunity, but it's an excellent point you asked. And that's how I do. I would very closely focus on the individual. And as he about to just make a break, I'll make an entry straight away.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Good question.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Good
So
morning.
my question is, so in a group, most of the group discussions, I wouldn't say everyone or everything, all group discussions, most of the group discussions, it always has 2 or 3 members who are the ones who are the only ones who actively participate. It's more like a debate actually within the two. How do we put forward our point or make sure that we also participate in it? We also ensure there's an active participation from our side. Sometimes they don't really mind or really take into consideration others. Like, so how do we deal with it actually?
Good point. Okay, so I spoke about it earlier, but let me again explain this. This is a very, very important point to look at. So let's see a group discussion. You start, it's 30-minute group discussion. And as I mentioned, let's say as an interviewer, I said, you guys have 2 minutes to make your notes before you get started. And then I say, okay, let's start now. Your time starts now. And you made your points. And you find that out of 8 people, these 3, 4 people are just up there. The other 3, 4 are just, mute spectators. They're just watching. You know, if you made your points on your notes, try and see which points have been covered, partly fully, right? So you build your mind to say, what are the points that these guys have not covered, and what is the most strong points where I can make an impact. Okay, be ready to make an impact. And when you see that discussion is going on, you can then quietly make a point there and say, hey guys, can I take a moment? Can I request you to please hold on? I observe that 3 or 4 of you have been speaking. I think 3 or 4 of us haven't got an opportunity. I think we also want to participate. Can I please request that in a turn, you allow us to speak on the topic? And then we can come back to you. And by saying that, maybe you can do another gesture by saying, let me not start. Let me ask Prasanna to speak, who has not spoken actually. I've also not spoken. Maybe I'll speak at the end. Let the turn be Prasanna, Sudarshana, Gopal, and then I'll speak. See how beautifully you have interjected, and you beautifully set yourself as a leader by saying, I'm not going to speak, though I have not spoken. I'm actually going to ask Prasanna to speak. And I've actually made some, and those guys will say, somebody may actually tell you, Akshay, be ready to say, Akshay, actually, I've not made my point. You may say, that's fine, Dhanush. Hold on. We've heard you for 10 minutes. Give us 3, 4 minutes, and all of us will make point, and then you can always add. So very politely tell him. And if he still insists, there's a negative marking that will get start for him. Okay, so if you understand, if he's smart, he will go quiet. He will allow Prasanna to speak.
Thank you so much, sir.
No, thank you. Thank you for asking this question. Okay, I'll move on from here then. One second. Yeah. Okay. Let me focus on this aspect as well. We talked about body language, your communication, your articulation. I think these two important elements, just keep this in mind: vocal versus visual. Okay, let me focus on the visual element first. Um, and I keep repeating this, and we find that a lot of cultural nuances are actually visible through the visual approach. So the posture with which you are sitting, the posture at which you watch, or you are kind of looking at your colleague when he or she is speaking, The eye contact that you make with your team members. Eye contact. That's an excellent point to look at from your confidence perspective. Your eye contact actually demonstrates confidence. The gestures that you make. Sometimes we are unhappy and you may not speak up, but actually with your face reflects that this guy is very disappointing. He just keeps speaking, speaking, speaking. He doesn't give opportunity. You're telling yourself internally, and your face is reflecting that actually. Okay, so please focus on your visual approach. Normally we suggest that don't sit on a chair and like go at the back. You know, be slightly tilted on the front, which actually shows that you are accepting somebody's views, you are open to ideas, you are listening. So have a good posture, have a very good comfortable eye contact, and demonstrate gestures which are very welcoming. Smile, your hand movement, which are very pleasing way to say, okay, very positively kind of participating in the whole discussion. So visual approach is very important. I'll come to vocal. We all focus on, like earlier the question was on voice, your clarity of speaking. That's really important because some of us, may have a good point. Sometimes our English becomes a bit of a problem. Sometimes you're not able to frame a sentence, that becomes a problem. But please try. And, as I mentioned, if you have a pen and paper, you've written it down, try to make sure that you cover the point in a very clear way. And you also kind of, you know, at least make sure that you complete the point that you have made, and therefore the clarity element is important of how clearly you speak. Voice modulation is very important. When, let's say, two, three people are really debating and their tone is going up, you can actually bring their tone down by saying, hey guys, relax. It's a group discussion. And you smile at them and say, you can just speak in a more comfortable way, so maybe a very gentle way of talking to someone actually allows, kind of changes the environment a bit and allows things to tone down. And somebody may realize, oh, why am I speaking so loud? Let me bring down my voice. The other thing I will say in vocal is, a lot of companies look at your energy, look at how intensely are you involved, are you deeply involved into this discussion or not. So make sure that you're not like, I've seen people just sitting in a chair and, okay, fine, my turn will come, or somebody is like just fiddling with their finger and thinking something. Be present, show that energy even when you're not speaking. Be very, very deeply involved. And obviously, when I say speed, the speed at which you speak, you know there has to be some kind of number of words that you speak in a minute. For example, if you speak very fast, some people may understand a few words, some they may not be able to understand. So how do you really speak so that your words are clear? And obviously timing matters. When do you tone down, when do you speak a bit louder, when do you catch up speed, when do you increase the tone of your voice? All that, really timing really matters, and it depends on how do you really modulate yourself in the whole discussion. So here are some guiding points. We discussed a lot of things. Let's look at some of the key guiding points. Okay, how do you deal with the subject? So we're talking about your subject matter knowledge, your content, your ideas, and things like that. Airtime. How much time do you speak? So let's say there are 8 students for a discussion for 30 minutes. What's the time roughly? 3.5 minutes per person, right? That's the thumb rule. If somebody is speaking too low, which is less than 1.5 minutes or less than a minute, then it become on the very lower side. If somebody starts speaking more than 4.5, 5 minutes, that becomes on the higher side. So keep that in mind, that you need to balance. Sine curve and energy. So as I talked about energy in the previous slide, we always see that some people who are not very consistent, they suddenly wake up in the discussion and they go up. A sine curve is what? Go up quickly, come down quickly, and then really go down and then you come up again. So don't be a sine curve. I would rather say, maintain a balance. Even when you wake up to talk something, you know, talk in a way that kind of maintains some continuity. It doesn't give that jerk feeling, and suddenly you show a lot of energy and then you go down. We talked about when to enter, what is the way to enter, how do you build on others' point, how do you handle disagreements. You have nothing to say. What do you do now? I talked about that as well. How do you really build on somebody else's ideas? Pick up some unfinished idea. Somebody gave an idea, but did not complete, and you think that you can actually build on that idea. Use that. How do you sum it up? Body language, listening skill. So these are the key element, guys, of group discussion that we are talking about. Okay, before I go on to type of GDs and things like that, let me come back again on the skill part. Are there any questions? Let me go to the other group. Reju, Prantik, a lot of people have put their videos off. Shyam, Vignesh, anybody? Arpan, Dharmesh, any questions? Are you guys clear?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
And once you go back today after the session, you have practice sessions. Make sure that you practice some of these things. Okay, make sure that you participate. I hope some of you are making notes of what I'm telling. Making some notes of some examples. And you will get the opportunity today when you participate in the practice session. Okay, now let's come back to some of the types of GDs and just to be aware about, and also the type of GD topics, because that's an important element to kind of, from a preparedness perspective. So there is a situation-based GD. What's a situation-based GD? Some hypothetical situation, some hypothetical scenario is given. Let me give you a couple of scenarios. Imagine India has become a 5 trillion economy. What do you think India would have achieved at that point of time? Okay, maybe that's the situation. That's the situation that you are in. There could be topics like, imagine that the Third World War has started, where the world has fighting at in three different directions. One at Vietnam, one at Taiwan, one in the Middle East, and one like Russia and Ukraine is already going on. And what happens to India? What strategy should India adopt when a third world war situation has started? So those kind of hypothetical situation, they are basically a situation where, one, it is testing whether can you visualize a situation? Can you really, and how do you visualize a situation? If you, let's say, talk about a 5 trillion economy, and if you know that a 5 trillion economy in India will give us this opportunity. India would have grown like this. The per capita would have grown like this. People would have become more prosperous. There would have been more industry. Are you able to visualize that scenario? And in that scenario, are you able to give some ideas, some examples? If you're going to highlight some problem, let's say war-like scenario, and you want to highlight, oh, India may have a big problem because we are in a global supply chain scenarios. We are dependent on oil, and our oil mostly comes from Middle East and Russia. And let's say if the war is happening in both the places, there'll be no oil in the country. Are you able to understand that? Are you able to appreciate and highlight that element? So it's all about your test for problem solving, your decision making skills, your adaptability, your thinking. Like a written example here, you are the CEO of a company which is facing a major crisis. How will you handle it? Okay, so that's a situation based question, and you need to be prepared. Now, a lot of your past people ask me, sir, how do I get ready for a situation based question? A lot of things I'll tell in a talk at the end, but I'll tell you one example here. A lot of preparation for GD is based on, it's a long-term preparation, frankly. GD, you don't get prepared in a day or two. For getting prepared on GD, you need to be reading a lot. And there's something that we suggest to all students. We call it a 20 into 200 approach. Does anybody know what's a 20 into 200 approach? Anybody's aware of 20 to 200? Okay, so what we say is you need to build good reading skills. If you can read 20 pages per day for 200 days of a year, you will make your life. 20 pages reading, it could be your book, it could be your newspaper, a magazine, an online article, anything that you can put your hands on, obviously relevant to what you are doing. You will build enough knowledge to participate in any group discussion. You build perspective on any industry analysis you want to do. You'll actually be able to do very well in your actual MBA and PGDM studies. That's what we have seen. So 20 into 200, just remember that. That's the golden rule to kind of prepare for group discussion. And read relevant topics, relevant items, and really be aware of what's happening around you. Okay, so that's situation-based question. Then there are abstract topics, very, very discrete. It involves discussing on a topic which is not concrete. Often it can have multiple interpretations. There can be different views, there can be different approaches taken. There's no right or wrong. And what are we testing here? We are trying to test your lateral thinking. Are you able to think on your feet? If suddenly a new situation comes, can you step back and think about the situation? Can you find out some ideas in a difficult situation? Are you able to bring some creativity? Are you able to think about some new ideas? Are you able to articulate on a topic that you don't know, but maybe you've read somewhere? Are you able to articulate that? Right? Example is a rolling stone gathers no moss. And it could be anything of that sort. How do you really interpret and how do you really build on that topic? Sometimes we even talk about things like, I can just give you a word called zero, and I expect you start your group discussion on this topic called zero. It's all up to you how you want to interpret this word zero. How do you want to kickstart your GD, and where do you want to take your discussion? Okay, so that's the abstract topic. The third way is knowledge-based topic. Now, that's quite important because, and in many cases, 50-60% cases, you actually get knowledge-based topic because an interviewer is trying to understand, do you understand the business knowledge? Do you understand a sector? Do you understand an industry? Do you understand what's going on? For example, yesterday I put on this question to a group saying that HDFC Bank performance has degraded since their merger with HDFC Limited. Do you agree or disagree? Now, this is not a simple yes or no topic, right? If you don't understand, if you don't know that HDFC Limited and HDFC Bank has merged, and why did they merge, what dynamics have been merged, it will be very difficult for you to answer. You may actually state some infactual stuff, and that's where your reading matters. It's factual. Why did HDFC Limited and HDFC Bank decide to merge? Was there a market condition? Was there a regulatory reason? Was there a business condition? Why? Can you bring out some facts? If you think that this merger is going to add value in the long term, why do you think so? Can you bring some facts here? By merging, HDFC Bank has not only become the biggest private lender bank in this country, it's become the second largest bank of the country. What does it mean to HDFC Bank in such a situation? So it's a very, very knowledge-based topic. And those people who have not read this topic, were not aware of this topic, may actually find it challenging, because if you speak, you may find yourself quoting some incorrect quotes or telling something that's factually incorrect and things like that. So knowledge-based topic typically tests your general knowledge, your knowledge about current events, some factual information, some factual business knowledge, and actually it tests your depth of the knowledge, your analytical skill, your awareness, and things like that. Let's take example. AI is going to impact future jobs in a very negative manner. Now, This is a pretty loaded topic. Do you know AI? What does AI do? Does AI create job? Does it kill job? What kind of job will it impact? What kind of job will it create? What kind of job will get killed? This is all about knowledge. If you have not read the topic of AI, how will you answer this question? How will you debate on this topic, right? So knowledge, and that's why I was saying this 20 into 200 will be very useful. It mostly useful will be knowledge-based GD, and which are almost 50, 60, 70% times. Then there are some controversial GDs, basically trying to test whether you are able to participate on a controversial topic, on a contentious topic. Can you bring in some opposing viewpoints? Can you agree to disagree? Can you bring in some new ideas? How do you handle conflict? How do you handle diverse opinions? How do you argue with people, but not argue with a loud voice, but a more positive and a positive approach? For example, should capital punishment be abolished? Now, given the current state of our country and the Calcutta event, a lot of people may have very strong views on this, right? And that becomes an important topic to kind of look at. Okay, so these are types of GDs. Then the GD topics, again, those can be factual topics like the education policy of India post-COVID, tourism in India, state of the aged in the nation, economy is going up or going down, and things like that. Controversial topics could be things like, do women make better managers? This world has got 80% male managers, maybe about 15, 20% are female managers. What do we think? Abstract topics like, something like I talked about zero, black, and things like that. There could be case-based situation topics, where a case is narrated to you and you are expected to understand the case and then answer and then actually start participating in the topic. Any questions on this type of topic? So broadly, we have covered
the 2 into 100 approach alone.
Sorry, go on.
No, sir, what's the formula? The 2 into 100 is equal to 100 approach. What is it actually?
No, I said 20 into 200. Are you talking about that? 20 pages, 20 pages a day for 200 days of the year, which basically means reading 8 to 10 pages every day is to build your knowledge. You got that, Akshay?
Yes, so much, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any other question anybody has?
Yes, sir. Based on the knowledge-based topics which you share, if we have no idea about a particular topic, can we just wait for others to give in their ideas, then try to assimilate on that, if it's possible?
Yes, of course, it's possible. And I mentioned that in the beginning. See, frankly, you don't have a choice, right? Let's
Yes,
say,
sir.
take the HDFC Bank topic, and you find that, oh, I don't know about this topic. Maybe I'm a marketing student and I've somehow not focused on finance topics. It happens, right? Now you say, what would I do? Okay, then you will say, okay, let me use my common knowledge and put some points, So when you get 2, 3 minutes initially, you make some point to say, what do I know about HDFC Bank and HDFC Limited? Oh, HDFC Limited, I know actually gives home loan, while HDFC Bank is a retail and commercial and a corporate bank. Okay, I know that. Okay, what else do I know? I make some notes. And then deliberately, you don't start. You let others speak. And as they speak, don't be just listening to them. Keep making extensive notes. Keep trying to expand what you wrote. And keep checking who has covered how much and to what extent. And then you will find a time when you will find, oh, this aspect I know a bit and they have not covered very well. And then you pick up that point and make a start.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So I have a doubt. When it comes to an abstract topic, like when you said topics like zero, it's fine. We can speak whatever we can actually relate to. But when it actually comes to a topic like Rolling Stone have no moss, it actually has some meaning to it. But if we really have no idea about it, is it fine to start with something irrelevant in the GD?
You can. So I normally suggest that you don't start. So you very rightly identified that, oh, maybe there is a specific meaning to this. And maybe one person in the group has some idea and he or she can start, but let's say you get a situation that, and I've seen that situation, 2 minutes, everybody is looking at each other. They're saying what to do. Now, here could be a leadership opportunity for you. Okay. And the way to get started, and nothing right or wrong in this, you can simply say, oh, I know a Rolling Stone as a band. Okay. I use the word Rolling Stone and I actually start talking about the band. And that actually kickstarts the discussion. Maybe you're not 100% right in the way you started, but you actually kickstarted the whole discussion because your group not speaking is so negative that everybody can get disqualified, right? But here you are, the brave person. You thought about something and you kickstarted. And maybe somebody else supports you. Prasanna comes, great point, Sudarsana, and he adds to that. And suddenly that becomes the topic.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But important is to, really give it a thought, make some notes. So I always say, I've seen people that when the topic is given, they're just watching each other and not doing anything. Have a piece of paper. Please, please, please write down your thoughts which are coming at that point of time. It's very important. Those ideas will be very useful as the discussion progresses. So make notes, immediately make notes. And sometimes when somebody else is speaking, new idea emerges. Immediately make a note of that idea. Okay. So constantly keep writing as ideas emerge, as new points come. Make sure that you're not missing out on those.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. All right. So I'll move on. A few more things to cover, and then we'll talk about today's session and what we are going to do. So my chance to speak. How do I capitalize? Okay. There are different situations that can be there. You're trying to interrupt others while speaking, will only harm your chances. I explained that point to you. How would you interrupt? Maintain an eye contact with the audience when you're speaking. Use positive body language. Don't take too much of time. Be crisp. Quickly come on at the right time and make the right point. Obviously, you're listening to others. So link your input with others who have spoken. Don't try repeating, and there are people who directly just repeat what others have said. There's no point. Even if you say, I agree with what, this person said, but let me add a couple of more points. That's the way to say. I heard you what you're saying. I disagree with you, and here is why I disagree with you. And give an example, right? So be very crisp, be very clear, and be very concise. Okay. So when your opportunity comes, make sure that you use your notes, you build on ideas of others, you link with ideas of others, explain that, give an example, give a new idea. In fact, I always say that when you've noted down the idea, let me come in the picture. When you noted down some idea, every time you speak, so normally each of us may get 2 to 4 times to speak maximum. Okay. Make sure that every time you speak, you're able to bring a new idea. Sometimes what happens is you spoken twice, you spoke as per the flow, and you forgot to bring your idea. And suddenly the discussion ends and you don't get to even share the idea, right? So make sure that you beautifully understand which idea needs to be brought where, and try and bring that idea and share that idea so that later you don't think, oh, I had such a bright idea, but I never shared it. Okay. So very, very in a defined way, planned way, graft your idea where you want to graft it. Which first time when you're speaking, you want to say there. Second time when you're speaking, you want to say there. When do you want to say that? But make sure that you use the opportunity and share your bright idea. Okay, don't miss out on that, on what you've already written. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so how to start a GD? Sometimes, that becomes an important question, and uh, I think we discussed in the very beginning that we'll start with a brief introduction, hello, and things like that. There are different other ways also to kind of do that. There are people who start with some quotes. Sometimes people say, okay, guys, looks like we don't understand the topic. Can I take a shot at defining the topic? Some people actually start with some question, you know, and some people may say, give some shock treatment. A shock treatment is basically trying to make some statement which surprises the participants. Let's say there's a population topic being discussed, and you may say, well, can I ask you to visualize the impact on population? At the center of the Indian capital stands a population clock that's ticking relentlessly. So like it's giving them a shock treatment saying, look, our population is increasing every second, and you're trying to bring that as a very important element. Sometimes you start with facts and figures and statistics on a topic. Sometimes you can start with a short story, you are able to relate something, and then you tell a brief story and say, hey guys, that's the starting point for you. Sometimes you can make a general statement. So there are various ways in which you can actually start a GD, depending on the topic. Let's say, for example, a knowledge based topic. Typically you can focus on giving some statistics. Take example of the HDFC Bank situation. You may say, guys, let me share this some interesting facts. When HDFC Limited and HDFC Bank has merged, they are now, a bank, the second largest bank of the country, with asset under management of this much. Their lending base is increased by 40% to this much. Their actual deposits have gone up 50% to this much. So that could be your starting point. But obviously, you will say that only when you know the data, when you're confidently very clear about sharing the data, right? Sometimes you can ask a question, to kind of kickstart. Do you think this is the right point to be made? Like yesterday we said, only 1% of Indian population pay income tax, and somebody started by saying, are you guys really sure that is 1%? Is it really calculated very well? And you can actually say, like I was giving them example, I may say, okay, let's do a quick calculation, guys. India's population is 140 million. If 60% are farmers, and let's say they don't pay any taxes, how many percentage people are left? 56 crore. If I say there are 4 in a family, it becomes 14 crore families. And if I assume that every family files an income tax, 14 crore people should be filing income tax. We know from the income tax department records that actually 7 crore people have filed taxes this year. So out of 14 crore potential people, actually 7 crore, which is 50% of people, are actually paying filing tax. Maybe they're not paying taxes, but they're all filing tax. See, the same 1% number was kind of linked in a different number altogether. It doesn't remain a 1%, right? But you can do this only when you are confident about some numbers. How do you really bring that aspect as part of the discussion? Any questions on this aspect? You guys are clear? Okay. Let's move on. So I'm going to talk a bit about virtual GD, given that during, let's say, up to 2021, even we were doing a lot of virtual sessions, a lot of virtual group discussion, virtual personal interviews, even doing virtual sessions. I think last couple of years really become more physical, more one-to-one interaction and things like that. So I've also seen that when virtual interviews happen, virtual group discussions happen, we are not very well prepared. So there are some basic digital hygiene that we all need to be prepared with. So I just want to make sure that I highlight that to you. So when you participate today, you are fully ready. The first aspect of a virtual GD is the technical setup, right? Make sure that you know which device you're going to use. we normally suggest don't use your mobile phone because it doesn't give you a proper view. It doesn't give you, sometimes, it can become very disturbing because you are on a live signal and it's working, not working, you are not sure about it. It's always better to take your own laptop or maybe an iPad, and sit in a place where you are very well connected to a broadband, a good stable internet connection. And then please test your device. Does the device camera is working? Is the device microphone working? Is there a proper light is working properly? It's always better that between two friends you test it. If, let's say, you haven't done a digital interview or a setup for a long time, or you haven't attended any digital sessions, you have not used it, it's always a good idea to test that properly. Familiarize yourself. So normally what I do is actually go and try joining the session few minutes advance to see is it working. So familiarize yourself with the video conferencing platform that being used. Sometimes there are access issues. Sometimes you don't know which link to click. Some of them may ask you to create their IDs and things like that. So be very clear on the technical setup, because the worst thing that you can do is, technically you are not ready, and in spite of being fully ready to participate, you miss out on the opportunity. Okay, so very important to be technically very ready and well set up. Then the next is the environment. Because we are participating in something serious, something important, make sure that you are in a quiet place, maybe in a room where there's nobody else to disturb you. It's a well lit, quiet room, distraction free. You've got a good background, professional background available. You've got a good broadband connection available. Your background is clear. There are no personal items spread here. It's basically, normally we sit on a table, a chair, a well set up with good posture and all that kind of stuff. So make sure that your environment is well set up. Number three, your dress code. The college would have specified a dress code for you. Make sure that you're professionally dressed. If you're going for a company group discussion, which is virtually, and you're expected to be in your tie and maybe a jacket, wear that. If there are female specific dresses being advised by the college, be in those dresses. Make sure that you're not wearing a t-shirt which is very bright, a very colorful stuff, which kind of reflects on the camera. Make sure that it's like almost like picture perfect. A well professional setup dress code, should be kind of there. Obviously preparation is important. What's the potential topic? We talked about reading. What are some of the immediate topics you want to prepare? You want to read through last 1 or 2 days newspapers. You want to pick up some relevant examples. You want to write down some examples that you want to quote. You kind of write down to say what are the key points you want to cover if this kind of a topic comes. If it is a company specific, have you gone to the website of the company and read through that? Do you understand company's background, their values, their recent developments? Make sure that you prepare well. So when you're going, obviously preparation is a common stuff. Whether you do and even dress code is a common stuff when you do a virtual or a face to face. But I think sometimes dress code becomes very important, because when you are face to face, you have the opportunity to influence the person in a much impactful way. Virtually, your picture is what is the impact, right? So how well you are dressed, how in the right posture you are sitting, how are you making eye contact, that ultimately matters. So make sure that your technical setup is done well, your environment is set up very well, you have a good dress code, and you're prepared well. And then you will have the confidence to participate in the virtual group discussion. What are the other stuff? This is almost like, revising what we discussed earlier. Your body language, sitting up straight, maintaining a good posture is very important. Remember what I said. When you want to demonstrate listening skill, you kind of slightly bend in the front, maybe at a 10-degree from the perpendicular, and you're trying to demonstrate that you are welcoming the idea, you are open to ideas, you're listening to someone. So posture matters, your eye contact, making sure that you are attentive all the time. See, when you are on a virtual setup, it's very easy to get distracted. You may feel that, let's say a lot of people have put their video on. I don't know what they're doing. Are they listening to me? Are they writing something? Are they reading something? Are they actually in front of the camera or not? I don't know. But if you are on the camera, if you are visible and I can see you, that's a much better opportunity to say, is the person focusing on what am I saying, right? So be very, very attentive, be very focused, demonstrate a very positive body language and eye contact. Practice, practice, practice. Practice with your colleagues, practice with your friend, practice with your family members. I typically tell people, use the Amitabh Bachchan way. What's the Amitabh Bachchan way of practicing? Stand in front of the mirror and practice. That's what I do. I write up my script, stand in front of the mirror and I speak and I talk, and I see for myself, do I like myself speaking? Am I saying, at least am I meeting my own expectations, right? And that's really, really important. So, but practicing is important. You take somebody's help, but practice. Sometimes recording yourself matters, and you can put your mobile in front of you, put your video camera on, record, see how you speak, how you demonstrate body language. Do you have clarity in speech? Are you kind of modulating the way you speak? All of that you can test if you are actually recording yourself, and you can actually check for yourself. Time management. Again, this is one important element that I see a few people kind of getting into a challenge. As I mentioned, if you've been given a time, it's always better to join 10 minutes before. You should have tested the connection. You should have tested the platform. Make sure that you're 5-10 minutes before the actual time, so that even if something technically happens, you're not rushing. You still have some time to kind of correct stuff and do it. So if you're like well in time, you still have opportunity if something goes wrong. So make sure that you're punctual, log on to the interview platform and be ready a few minutes before. Give yourself sufficient time. Don't rush. That last moment you are coming, trying to open the laptop, trying to connect, please don't do that. Allocate yourself sufficient time. Be ready, so that you get some time to breathe. You feel very relaxed. You feel very calm and quiet. And that allows you to very positively participate. Okay, so time management is important. Engagement. Of course, as I mentioned, your energy is being seen. Now imagine when you are in a virtual kind of environment. Obviously, let's say I can see three of you, Sudarshana, Prasanna, and Aksha. All three of you are very, very attentive. But can I ask you to smile? Can I ask you to kind of, you know, demonstrate some body language? Maybe that's what you can do. Maybe nod, like Akshay is doing, nodding and saying, yeah, yeah, sir, I understand what you're saying. That speaks very positive. So, the visual aspect is the only aspect I have right now, right? I don't know, I can't be there in the room to see how you're feeling, but I can at least see you. So make sure that your facial expression, your shoulder, this aspect gives a good posture, a very positive, and yeah, like you guys did now, it really gives you some positive feeling. So make sure that you participate in that kind of a positive manner. Okay. And engagement is important, asking questions, supporting each other, participating, making notes. Now, when you are in a virtual interview, you are in a slightly better situation in terms of making notes, because you are in your own room. You may have a table chair. You can put that. Sometimes when we are sitting in a conference room on a chair, you know, putting the paper on the lap and writing is not that easy. So normally you need to carry some hard stuff like a diary if you want to really write, because you may not get supporting. But today you are in your own hostel room or wherever you are, you will have that support available. You are sitting on your table, you can have your table right in front, and you should be able to then write it properly and those kind of stuff. Don't get into Googling. Again, I tell people like this, don't get into Google. People actually look at to check whether you're getting distracted. Any kind of distraction should be avoided. Okay. When you're writing on a piece of paper like Akshay is doing now, I can observe that. But when you get diverted to watching on a mobile and doing something, I can make up that. So make sure that you don't feel like getting distracted. you are engaged positively, and you demonstrate interest. That's a very, very important element. And that becomes very active in terms of your body language, plus the way you build on somebody's ideas, the way you listen to somebody, the way you positively talk about somebody's ideas, and things like that. Any questions? I still have few more slides to cover, but let me ask any questions. Anyone else? Muhammad. Any questions, Muhammad? Aaron?
No, sir, no questions as of now.
Clear? Everything is clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let's
Thank you.
now do some summary. So here are some do's and don'ts for virtual GDs. So what are the do's? We talked about stable internet connection, quiet environment, professional attire, camera on, tested properly, your voice tested properly. You need to speak clearly, active listening, good posture, focused all the time. What should not be doing? Avoid interruptions. Tell people, if there are family members and others, that guys, for the next 1 hour, please don't disturb. Don't knock unless it's a real emergency. Okay, so avoid interruptions. Don't mute unnecessarily. If, let's say, as a design you have been unmuted and you're required to be unmuted, please keep yourself unmuted. Okay, so whatever are the rules of the game, follow rules of the game. Don't do multitasking. Okay, so I told you, you can write notes. Obviously, let's say during the conversation you get some idea and you want to take 10 seconds to write. You may like to write that down, but don't spend too much time writing and you miss out on the discussion. Try to speak at a speed that somebody can hear you, somebody can listen to you, somebody can really understand that. Don't speak too fast. That's something that you need to practice. Avoid taking over others, i.e., when do you interject? At least when you are on a video, you're able to see person speaking. So wait for the person to kind of complete before you interject. Don't forget to check your equipments, minimize movements, and of course, adhere to the time limit. So these are some of the important do's and don'ts. Okay, the other most important point, you are at the end of the group discussion. How would you summarize? How would you summarize? Can I hear from some of you? What's the best way to summarize?
Point and the new ideas that brought in by the panel members. That what is the final notion, or bring out a neutral conclusion or inference that was inferred from the GD discussion.
So I put this question mark saying, let's say it's time to summarize, and Prasanna is ready to summarize. And suddenly Akshay remembers, oh, there's one important point I have not spoken about. What should you do? Should you share your point? Should you not share your point?
I feel that if that time has been allotted in the last 1 or 2 minutes for summarizing the discussion, we need not add on any new points after that.
Yeah, fair. That's a fair point, because that may actually sound to be a bit of an interruption. But let's say, Prasanna, you finally took a call and said, "Hey guys, I think we are at the end of." Sorry, one more important thing before I talk about. I think I've also seen one other thing not happening very well is time management, in the sense that when you are given 30 minutes, um, sometimes a company may actually deliberately not warn you about time. They want to check whether, as a team, you distribute role and somebody takes a time management role, saying that, hey guys, let's keep a watch on 30 minutes. Okay. And I've seen cases where company deliberately doesn't allow you to summarize, and they may say, guys, your 30 minutes is over. Let's stop the discussion. Done. Okay, so as a team, because you're part of a college team, make sure that somebody is tracking the time. Okay, so to Prasanna's point, last 2 minutes are left now. Maybe Akshay has a point, and Akshay tells Prasanna, Prasanna, I have one more point to make. Can I make it? And Prasanna says, okay, we've got 2 minutes left. Akshay, 30 seconds for you, and then I'm going to summarize the next 90 seconds. That's one way to do it, because you respected somebody else's views and you allow Akshay to speak up, right? And therefore Akshay speaks and then you summarize. Sometimes what happens is you are ready to summarize and you got a new point. What do you want to do? How would you bring in that new point? Summary becomes also a tactic, right? So, sometimes you may say, guys, some good points we spoke, but there's one point I really wanted to highlight before I summarize, and you highlight the point and then say, let me now start summarizing. There were some good points for the topic and some against the topic. Here are some key points which supported the topic. Here were some key points which are against the topic. And you can conclude, right? So there are ways and means where you can try and bring in, even if a new point comes, you can try and bring in. But I think this time management point, I definitely want to tell you that as a group, make sure that somebody is tracking the time. Now, in a practice session, we may remind you, guys, 5 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go. But maybe in a real group discussion, the company deliberately may not remind you. They want to see whether somebody is really doing time management. And that could also be an element of leadership. Okay, so when you are summarizing, normally our tendency is that we only talk about our own points, right? Make sure that you are holistically summarizing. You are summarizing for an overall group. Like you are the CEO at that point of time for the group. And as a CEO, you are summarizing the overall conversation and a conclusion. If you, let's say, as a group, you agreed on a conclusion, then you're summarizing that. If you, as a group, you disagreed, then you're doing a balancing act to say, guys, at the end, we could not agree on the topic. However, let me highlight some of the pros on the topic, some of the cons on the topic, right? And that's how you kind of summarize. Then avoid dwelling only one aspect of the GD. Of course, make it a more holistic one. Keep it brief and concise, and therefore writing the point on piece of paper helps. It's important that you bring in most of the significant points which were raised. If the company's rep asks you to summarize a GD, it means the GD has come to an end. Sometimes they are managing the time and they say, hey guys, last 2 minutes, Akshay, can you summarize the discussion? And suddenly Akshay is surprised because he's not ready to summarize, right? So all of you needs to be ready to summarize. And don't anything once the GD has been summarized. So once it is done, don't say, oh, I had one more point to add. Can I add? Summary done, GD done. The program is finished. You don't need to add. A vote of thanks have been given, right? That's what we say. Vote of thanks have been given. Everybody has clapped. It's time to finish the session. Okay, so don't go about saying, okay, I had one more point to add. That's not the right way to do it. Okay, so that's like how you will do a summing up. All right, some of the common errors, I think we covered them. Starting and not having anything substantial to say. I think this is a common mistake some people make. In the urgency to start, they start, and I saw that yesterday with one of the groups. But the person made very limited contribution, and that's a negative point right at the beginning. So either you are very sure to start and have got substantial points to make, then you start. If you're not confident, you don't think you would substantial points, don't start. Allow somebody else to start. I agree with the topic or I disagree with the topic right at the beginning. Okay. Normally people start by saying that, again, as I mentioned, maintain a neutral approach. Many interventions avoid many interruptions in interventions. Most without substance or backup arguments. Anyway, too many interventions are not a good thing. But when you intervene, have a solid reason, have a good example being connected to your intervention. One-on-one conversation or arguments, please avoid. This is a group activity. We are not trying to bring anybody down. We are not here to support anyone because he or she is a friend. So avoid that. No personal attacks. I mentioned that sine curve. When do you want to enter? What's your peak? Understand that. Too many common examples, even too many common points, avoid. Absolute silence. You start with a 0. You will not score. Obviously, you have to contribute. You're in a group discussion. So make sure that you find out time and get in and participate. Okay. Some of the key highlights to look at: airtime, too little, too much, 10 minutes GD and 10 participants, too little, 45 seconds, too much, 2 minutes. I give you the example. In a 30 minutes, 3.5 minutes per person, and if let's say you're not speaking at all, that's not good. Speaking for less than a minute, not so good. Okay, sine curve we talked about, die out or trail effect. Do you really kind of speak out and then finish it off? It's like you have nothing more to say. It's almost like ending as if I've run out of ideas. That's a bit negative. Start off and then lose steam in the middle of a sentence or argument. And I talked about 20 into 200. Okay, here are some probable situations, and I think we spoke about it, but let me bring them to life. The discussion is dominated by a few participants. We talked about it. How would you deal with that? How will you politely interject? The group is going off the topic. How will you get inside? It's a leadership opportunity. A participant is being challenged aggressively. How will you diffuse the situation? How will you calmly say, while you respect your point of view, can we consider this other angle? And you bring some respect out there in the discussion and still kind of agree to disagree. The group is reaching a consensus too quickly. I've also found that while 30 minutes are given, after 15 minutes, nobody has anything to say. How would you get started? What will you do? Encourage deeper analysis by stating, guys, before we conclude, can we examine some other aspect of this point so that we are not missed out on something? Here are a couple of points I want to highlight. So make sure that, again, you're trying to complete the group discussion. We spoke about this. A participant has limited knowledge. What will you do? How will you build on somebody else's ideas and kind of talk about it? A participant is being ignored. How will you make sure that you get the participant active? Okay, like we talked about. So all of these situations we have talked about. I just wanted to bring out as part of the summary. So what's the method that we are going to follow? There are going to be 20 students that will join the meeting with 10 students in one group. Now, because it's a virtual one, what we are going to do is 45 minutes allocated to one group. And, to distinguish between who is the speaking group and who is the observer group, there's a mechanism being agreed that your background will be changed accordingly. That will be specified. It's mandatory to keep your camera on throughout the session. There'll be 2 rounds. In one round, you're going to be speaking as a participant. In the other round, you're going to be an observer. You will actually be required to make some notes as observers, and you will be asked at the end by the coordinator or the mentor to say, can you explain how did you find this GD going? Can you kind of give some feedback to one of the participants? Okay, so that will be kind of asked. There will be feedback session. There will be observer feedback, where after the session they will be giving feedback to the participants, and then at the end, 5 to 7 minutes, the mentor is going to give feedback both on the participants as well as on the observers. And an overall summary will be done by the mentor. We are also agreed that there will be a background being set up. So all 10 students in the group will use a constant Yugma background throughout the meeting. Your coordinator will help you in that. Please ensure that you have a book and a pen to make a note. It's mandatory to join the meeting using the username which has been provided to you so that we can very easily identify you. Okay, that's it. Any questions on the process? Are you guys clear on the process? Any more questions, please?
I have a query. So I've always had this thought about GD. So people say like the very first ones to start the GD or the last ones to conclude are the ones who are the impressive ones or they are the ones who are more likely to get marks. Is it a myth or is it a true notion, sir?
It's not a myth. There is some truth in that, in the sense that let's say if you are the one who start, what happens is, if you're very well prepared, you have the opportunity to make most of the common points. And when you make common points, when you make known points, the chances are that you will end up articulating very well. So people who start, if they really start very, very well, their chances are they will score some additional points. But there's a downside to it. If you're not prepared very well, if you start but you are not able to give it a good start, that may also become negative. So you need to take a call based on the topic and your own awareness and knowledge on the topic, whether you want to be the one who wants to start, or you want to wait for others to start, and then it may not be too much of a difference. Let's say somebody starts and he makes a decent start. You still have the opportunity while doing discussion to kind of make your own points and make an impact. Okay. As interviewers, we understand that somebody who starts and somebody who ends has an opportunity to make extra points, but we don't want to be biased. We look at people, the opportunity that they got to participate, and did they really try themselves to participate? Because see, somebody starting the first time, why do they get slight advantage? They are actually taking some bit of risk, right, when they start. So because somebody is taking risk, they also get rewarded a bit more if they do well, right? The first mover advantage is always there, but it's not a big difference, I may say. Okay. Similarly, when you summarize at an individual level, you are being tested. If you summarize very, very well, the chances are you will get selected. But that's a real good skill, that somebody who's really focused on the GD for 30 minutes is able to really do a justice to summary, is able to cover most of the key points, is able to balance it out. It's quite an ask. So you need to be ready to meet that ask.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
So I
Okay.
have a follow-up on the question.
Yeah.
So like
Sorry, who is speaking? Shyam is speaking.
people who
Yeah, go
summarize
ahead.
the extra point because of the one person summary, what should we do in that perspective? And in
Sorry,
sometimes
I'm unable to hear you, Shyam. I think your voice is cracking.
uh, so the point is that like because for summarizing there are extra points, students one or two students summarize continuously. For example, if Akshaya summarizes, Prasanna again summarizes the same thing or a different conclusion to get extra points. So, what exactly do you do in those type of situations when two or more people start to summarize and conclude the GD?
See, so let's say the summary has come and everybody feels that if I summarize, I can get some extra points, and people are kind of trying to fight out to say who summarizes. And let's say Akshay says, hey guys, we are at the end of the discussion, 2 minutes to go. Can I take your permission and summarize this? And a few people nod and Akshay summarizes. But Prasanna kind of feels that I also want to summarize. And he goes on to summarize. It's considered to be a bit negative. Okay. When broadly the group has agreed that one person is making a summary, and one person has taken a lead in summary, one would normal avoid to kind of get in there, unless you feel that maybe Akshay started and she couldn't do justice to the summary, and you look at the group, and look at the body language of the group and say, guys, can I make an attempt to summarize? And if the group says, yeah, Prasanna, go ahead, maybe then you can summarize. So make sure that if you're really trying to attempt, take some kind of agreement from the group Otherwise, what will happen is, let's say Prasanna wants the second person to summarize, and Shyam says, I also want to summarize. That's a uncalled for kind of a situation. So in general situation, one person summarizes and the GD ends. We don't expect anybody else to kind of come in there. But in a real extreme scenario where somebody has really not done justice, you can take a group agreement to say, hey guys, can I attempt to summarize? There are a few points which are missed out. And the group feels, okay, go ahead, Prasanna. And then maybe you can add. Make sense?
Yes, sir. So also one more doubt. So let's say the summary of one person is biased towards a decision. So then can someone with the group's permission again summarize?
See, again, so you have to look at it this way, that at some point of time, the interviewer may intervene. In fact, let's say the second person, Prasanna, says, I want to summarize. The interviewer himself or herself may say, Prasanna, that's fine. Thank you so much. Akshay has already summarized. We are ending the group discussion. Okay. So normally, again, it depends on the companies. What are they testing? If they're trying to test certain aspect of their own values and they allow you to kind of, do a bit more, you are actually being tested. So be ready to be tested. But in a general good practice, if one person has summarized, we should go with the fact that group discussion has ended and we should not attempt to go for another round of summary, will be my view. Okay, because the chances are that that individual may actually get a negative point and may get out of the group discussion round. So whatever hard work you did for the first 30 minutes may just go away because of this one approach you have taken.
Okay.
Okay, but good question, Shyam. Good that you asked this question. Anybody else?
Sir, you talked about coming to a consensus quite quickly on any given topic. What if the topic that has been given to us is kind of lucid in its manner that it makes it comes to a conclusion quickly?
So see, if a topic, let's say given 30 minutes, you can only just debate or discuss for 20 minutes and most of the points have been discussed, that's perfectly fine. So then the judgment call is on the interviewer. Unless the interviewer feels that there were 10 points to be covered and only 7 got covered, then that reflects on the group. So when companies give you topic, see, frankly, in a team of 8 or 10, 30 minutes are not enough. In most situations, we find that the topics don't get concluded very, very well. Not everybody is able to participate and things like that. So 30 minutes is a pretty decent time. Anything getting over in less than 20 minutes, the chances are, the probability is that enough discussion has not happened on the topic. Because even with a thumb of rule, you're doing 2 rounds of discussions, 1 minute each, itself will need 20 minutes at the minimum, right? And then there is start and then there is end. So in most cases, you will need this time, 30 minutes, 35 minutes to actually debate properly, conclude, make a summary and things like that. But if naturally 20 minutes it gets over, there's no harm in that. As long as the interviewer feels that, things have been covered. In fact, it's a good question. Yesterday, in fact, I'm just reminded of one situation. So actually the team concluded in about 17, 18 minutes. And the interviewer felt that enough discussion had not happened. So the interviewer actually, the mentor actually expanded the situation by adding another scenario. But that was a practice session. So obviously a scenario was added. In real case, there may be less members selected in the group because enough justice has not been done. Justice has not been done to the topic. The chances are that there may be much more elimination in this group if you ended up quickly. Answers your question, Sarpan?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you quite a lot.
Sure. Any other question? Anyone? All right, so I'll thank you for your participation, and I must say it's excellent participation, though limited student participated, but I think every time I asked a question, you came forward to ask me the question. So thank you for that. Really good participation, and I wish you all the best. I hope you have picked up some learnings and notes from the session, and please use it to practice when the real session happens today, and have your learning so that when you have your, I'm told that your internship GDs may happen next week. So I wish you all the very best. Do well, and I'll see you very soon. And I'll be very happy if you can scan this QR code and give me some feedback. That will be useful for the future. Thank you very much, and all the best to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ask Lisma whether we can leave or not.
Coordinators, we can now close the session.